Stop buying rooting hormone. Seriously, put the bottle down. I don't care if it's on sale. I don't care if the garden center guy swears by it. The truth, the real, buried, inconvenient truth, is that you're paying $20 for a single synthetic chemical when nature is offering you a full-spectrum, plant-based, hormone-rich alternative for practically nothing. And the reason you've never heard about it is not because it doesn't work, it's because no corporation can patent a willow tree, no manufacturer can trademark raw honey, and no garden center can legally sell you a homemade recipe that hasn't been through a $1 million regulatory approval process. Here's what we're doing today. I'm going to hand you a recipe. $1. That's what it costs. It will triple your root mass. Not maybe, not hopefully, it will. I've seen it on tomatoes, on roses, on fig cuttings, on bare root fruit trees, on houseplants that were 1 day away from the compost pile. And by the time we're done, you'll know exactly why this works, exactly how to make it, and exactly how to use it in 3 different ways for maximum results. No fluff, no filler. Let's go. First, let's address the elephant in the garden center. If you walk into any big box store and stare at the rooting hormone shelf, what are you actually looking at? You're looking at a jar of talcum powder. Talc is the carrier. Mixed into that talc is a tiny measured dose of a synthetic auxin, usually indole-3-butyric acid, which the industry calls IBA. IBA is a plant hormone that triggers root initiation. It works. I'm not saying it doesn't. Commercial growers use it every single day. But here's what the label doesn't tell you. When you dip a cutting into that powder, you are applying a single hormone at a single concentration with 0 antifungal protection, 0 wound sealing, 0 microbial stimulation, and 0 ability to adjust the concentration for different plant species. It's a blunt instrument. And for difficult-to-root plants, a blunt instrument often fails. The cutting rots before it roots, or it calluses over but never pushes out a single root, or it roots weakly, sparsely, and then struggles to establish once potted up. Now let's talk about what plants actually need to root successfully. First, they need a hormonal signal. That's the IBA. But that signal is not a single shout. It's a conversation. Multiple hormones, auxins, cytokinins, gibberellins, salicylic acid, all talking to the plant cells in a complex chemical language. Second, they need protection from fungal and bacterial invasion at the cut site. Third, they need wound sealing so they don't desiccate. Fourth, they need a sterile or at least pathogen-suppressed environment. And fifth, if you want to go beyond just rooting into truly explosive root development, they need a microbial support team in the rhizosphere. One synthetic powder cannot do all that, but willow water and raw honey together can. And here's the part that makes garden centers squirm. The ingredients are free or nearly free, and you can make this yourself in less time than it takes to drive to the store and back. Let's break down willow. Not metaphorically, chemically. Willow trees, and specifically the fast-growing species like Salix alba, Salix nigra, and Salix babylonica, are biochemical factories. Their cambium layer, the living tissue just under the bark, is saturated with indole-butyric acid. It's the exact same IBA in that $20 jar, but it's naturally chelated, naturally buffered, and naturally accompanied by a whole suite of supporting compounds that the synthetic version strips away. Alongside the IBA, willow tissue contains salicylic acid. If that sounds familiar, it's because salicylic acid is the precursor to aspirin. In plants, it acts as a systemic defense activator. When a cutting is exposed to salicylic acid, its internal immune system ramps up. It produces pathogenesis-related proteins. It thickens its cell walls. It becomes far less susceptible to the damping off fungi and bacterial rots that kill so many cuttings in their first 2 weeks.
Willow also contains a cocktail of other auxins and auxin-like compounds that you never get in a commercial powder. Indole-3-acetic acid, the primary natural auxin in all plants, is present. So are various gibberellins that stimulate cell elongation. So are cytokinins that promote cell division. This is a full-spectrum hormonal signal. It's the difference between hearing a single note and hearing a symphony. Now, how do you extract all this goodness? Boiling water extraction is the simplest, most effective home method. The hot water ruptures the plant cell walls, releasing the hormones and secondary metabolites into solution. It's exactly the same principle as making tea, and indeed, what you're making is a plant hormone tea. The timing matters. Early spring is best when sap is rising and auxin levels in the new growth are at their peak. But if it's July and you need rooting hormone now, go cut your willow branches anyway. The tree never stops producing these compounds. The concentration just shifts seasonally. Here's a mistake people make. They boil the willow twigs in the water. Don't do that. Boiling degrades IBA. Pour the boiling water over the chopped willow and let it steep, covered, off the heat. Patience here pays off. A 24-hour steep is good. 48 hours is better. 72 hours in a cool place is best. The liquid will darken to amber, then to a deep brown. That color change is the oxidation of phenolic compounds, and it's a visual signal that your extraction is complete. Now, raw honey, not the clear, filtered, pasteurized stuff. That's sugar syrup with the life boiled out of it. You need raw, unheated, unfiltered honey, the kind that crystallizes on the shelf. Why? Because raw honey contains glucose oxidase, an enzyme that when diluted with water slowly releases hydrogen peroxide. That's your antifungal and antibacterial protection. Commercial rooting compounds don't offer this. They rely on the cutting's own immune system, which is already stressed. Honey provides external immune support. Raw honey also has a pH around 3.9, which is acidic enough to suppress many common rot pathogens. It's hygroscopic, meaning it draws moisture to itself, which helps keep the cut end of the cutting from drying out during the critical first days. And it contains trace amounts of plant growth factors, B vitamins, and amino acids that feed the cells at the wound site. You're not just protecting the cutting, you're feeding it. Let's get to the exact recipe. Write this down. Step 1. Harvest a handful of young willow branches about the thickness of a pencil. You want the newest growth, the tips. Strip off any leaves. Chop the branches into 1-inch pieces. You need roughly 2 firmly packed cups of chopped willow. Step 2. Place those pieces in a heat-proof container. A half-gallon mason jar works perfectly. Pour 1 gallon of boiling water over the willow. Cover immediately. Let it steep in a cool, dark place for a minimum of 24 hours up to 72 hours for maximum potency. Step 3. Strain out the woody material through a fine mesh strainer or cheesecloth. The liquid is your willow concentrate. It can be refrigerated for up to 2 weeks or frozen in ice cube trays and stored for months. Step 4. When you're ready to use it, pour 1 cup of the willow concentrate into a clean jar. Add 1 tablespoon of raw, unfiltered honey. Stir gently until it's fully dissolved. Do not heat it. Heat kills the enzymes in the honey.
That's the recipe. Total cost, excluding the water and jar you already own, is about $1 for the honey. The willow is free. If you don't have a willow tree on your property, I promise you there is one within a mile of your house. They grow in drainage ditches, along creeks, at the edges of parks, and in the forgotten corners of suburban neighborhoods. Ask a neighbor. Most people are happy to let you harvest a few branches. Now, using this stuff is where the magic actually happens. There are 3 application methods, and they each serve a different purpose. Method 1. The cutting soak. This is for propagating new plants from stem cuttings. Fill a small glass with your undiluted willow honey solution. Take your prepared cutting. The cut at the base should be a clean 45-degree angle made with a sharp, sterilized blade. Remove any lower leaves that would be below the soil line. Place the cut end into the solution and let it soak. For soft wood cuttings like basil, tomato, or coleus, a 2-hour soak is sufficient. For semi-hardwood cuttings like rosemary, lavender, or hydrangea, soak for 12 to 18 hours. Overnight is ideal. For hardwood cuttings like fig, grape, or rose, soak for a full 24 hours. After soaking, do not rinse the cutting. The honey residue stays on as a protective coating.
Insert the cutting directly into your pre-moistened propagation medium. A 50-50 mix of perlite and vermiculite works beautifully. Cocoa coir and sand is another good option. The goal is a sterile, well-draining medium that holds moisture without becoming waterlogged. Water the cutting in with a bit more of the diluted solution and then cover with a humidity dome or a clear plastic bag. What happens next is a hormonal cascade that was triggered during that soak. The IBA and auxins penetrated the stem tissue, specifically targeting the cambium layer and the parenchyma cells just inside the bark. Those cells are totipotent, meaning they can differentiate into any plant tissue. The auxin signal tells them, become roots. The salicylic acid simultaneously tells the cutting's immune system, stay on high alert. The honey residue prevents any opportunistic fungi from colonizing the cut surface. Within 5 to 14 days, depending on the species, root primordia will form and the first white root tips will emerge. Method 2. The transplant drench. This is for newly purchased seedlings, divisions, or bare root plants that are about to go into the ground. Dilute your willow honey concentrate at a ratio of 1 part concentrate to 5 parts clean dechlorinated water. Pour this solution directly into the planting hole before you place the transplant and use it to water the plant in thoroughly after planting. The auxins in the solution immediately contact the existing root tips and signal the fine root hairs to extend and branch. This is crucial because transplant shock is fundamentally a root damage problem. When you pull a seedling out of its nursery pot or dig up a division, you inevitably tear and bruise the microscopic root hairs that do the actual work of water and nutrient absorption. The plant wilts while it repairs that damage. The willow honey drench accelerates the repair, often to the point where the plant never visibly wilts at all. It transitions seamlessly from container to soil. Method 3. The established plant root drench. This is for plants that are already in the ground, but they're struggling. Maybe they're chlorotic, yellowing between the veins. Maybe they're putting on spindly, weak growth. Maybe they just seem stuck, not dying, but not thriving. Use the same 1 to 5 dilution and apply it as a deep soil drench around the drip line of the plant. The drip line is the circle on the ground directly below the outermost branches. That's where the feeder roots are. This application does 2 things. First, it directly stimulates the existing root system to push out new lateral roots and root hairs, increasing the absorptive surface area dramatically. Second, the sugars and enzymes from the honey, even in this highly diluted form, feed the beneficial bacteria and mycorrhizal fungi in the rhizosphere. Those microbes respond by increasing their own activity, mining minerals from the soil, trading them to the plant in exchange for root exudates. The willow compounds signal to the plant that it's in a growth phase, and the whole soil food web shifts into a more active symbiotic mode.
Now, let's address the elephant in the room: skepticism. I know what some of you are thinking. If this is so great, why isn't it on the shelf? I already told you. But let me make it plainer. The garden product industry is built on proprietary formulations, synthetic chemistry, and intellectual property. A company cannot patent a willow tree. It cannot trademark raw honey. It cannot charge a premium for something you can make in your kitchen. And it cannot legally sell a plant growth regulator without EPA registration, which costs millions. So instead, it sells you the synthetic version, markets it aggressively, and hopes you never wander down to the creek with a pair of pruning shears. There's also the fact that homemade willow water has a short shelf life. It's a living product, full of compounds that degrade over time. A garden center can't stock a bottle that goes bad in 2 weeks. But you don't need a shelf-stable product. You need a product you can make fresh whenever you need it from the tree that grows down the road. One more thing before we wrap up. This recipe has deep roots in traditional agriculture. Farmers and gardeners have been using willow steepings for propagation since before the word auxin was invented.
Victorian-era horticultural manuals describe the practice of placing willow twigs in the water with cuttings of other species to promote rooting. The science has caught up with the tradition, and it has validated everything those old gardeners knew by observation and experience. You are not experimenting with some untested folk remedy. You are participating in a lineage of plant knowledge that stretches back centuries. So here's your assignment. This week, make this recipe. Even if you only make a small batch, even if you only test it on a single tomato sucker or a basil cutting from the grocery store. Find a willow tree. Cut some young branches, steep them in boiling water. Strain. Add honey. Soak a cutting. Plant it. Wait. Watch. And when you see those roots emerge, thicker, wider, and more abundant than anything you've ever grown from a cutting before, you'll understand why this knowledge has been suppressed. Not because it's dangerous, because it's liberating, because it hands the power back to you, the everyday gardener, and takes it away from the corporations that want you to believe you need their products to succeed. You don't. You never did. The forest has been offering this gift all along. Thank you for being here with me on Everyday Harvest. If this recipe changes the way you propagate, share it. Hit that thumbs up. Tell another gardener. Let this knowledge spread as vigorously as the willow itself. And if you're not subscribed yet, join this community of growers who are done paying for what nature provides. Now get out there and find your willow. I'll see you in the next one.